Hello and welcome to the Best Football Show. I'm your host, Brian Baldinger. I'm here every day at Baldy NFL. Please go find me out there on your free Odyssey app. Like, subscribe, all that kind of good stuff. Find me on Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube, on Threads, you name it. I've got breakdowns of a lot of players that transition teams in free agency and a lot of the upcoming draft players. Did a lot of different breakdowns. Broke down Marshawn Kneeland yesterday out of Western Michigan, a defensive end prospect. Looks like a second-round pick to me. The MAC always turns out, some pretty good players for the draft. Not in numbers, but some good players. Anyways, take a look at that. But I'm here today to talk about the AFC East. Yesterday, I talked about the Jets and the Buffalo Bills. Today, I want to talk about the rest of the AFC East, the Miami Dolphins, and the New England Patriots. So let's just get right into the Dolphins. I mean, they led the league in rush average. Tua had a phenomenal season. He went and started 18 games. He never started every game in his career at Alabama for the Miami Dolphins. He started and lined up 18 games last year. Set the NFL record not the record, but he led the NFL last year in passing yards. He had his best year. He completed 69% of his passes, over 4,600 yards. Tua was outstanding, and the offense was dynamic. They had a ton of injuries, both running backs last year, Raheem Mostert, Devon Achane, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. They had a ton of injuries. Left tackle, you go across the board. The offense was still very good, even despite injuries at nearly every key position. They were still outstanding, and they should be this year, and they have to be. They have excellent personnel. They've got speed. They've got playmakers. They've got a system. They've got a coach that now knows how to call plays. In his second year last year, like I said, they led the league in rush average. And they just re-signed Raheem Mostert to a 2-year deal. Devon Achane showed you averaging 7.8 yards a carry last year and just over 100 carries, that he is a great change of pace back. He could be their, Jahmyr Gibbs. If he stays healthy, this could be, a dynamic rushing football team. Now, it's about the offense, because I believe the offense has to carry this team. Defensively, they knew they were going to lose a lot of free agents. They had the least amount of money to spend. They were, at the start of free agency, they were last. They were negative $34 million in a salary cap world that's like $155 million. They had to cut and let go of a lot of players. Guys that have been really good players. Xavier Howard won't be back. Brandon Jones won't be back. Christian Wilkins went to the Raiders. Manny Ogba. You just go through Van Ginkel. I mean, you could just go on and on and on about the losses. But somehow, and maybe the biggest loss, they lose Vic Fangio, and Anthony Weaver takes over defensive coordinator. I got to see how that goes. It's going to be a different style of defense. They lost Jalen Phillips, who I think is their best defensive player, on Black Friday against the Jets, day after Thanksgiving. Jalen Phillips was really turning it up. Achilles injury, just hard to watch that. And then shortly thereafter, Bradley Chubb was lost for the season. And so you look at losing basically your 4 defensive ends, Ogba, Van Ginkel, Phillips, Chubb. That's hard to overcome. But they did find ways to sign some players. Jordan Poyer comes from Buffalo to play opposite Javon Holland. I mean, that's a good signing. They got their linebackers signed. When you look at Jordan Brooks, who just 2 years ago led the NFL in total tackles. They got Anthony Walker from Cleveland to go with David Long. I mean, the linebackers are back. So you look at this right now and you go, okay, well, be honest with you, they were the 22nd ranked defense last year. They weren't very good. They gave up 56 points to Baltimore in week 17. That was despite all the injuries and all that stuff. So, they weren't very good at the end. And of course, they went to frigid Kansas City for the playoffs, and they literally froze to death in Kansas City, and they were a non-factor in the game. But this is a team that's going to come back offensively. They're going to put up big numbers. They're going to run the ball So defensively, they need help. So they've got the 21st pick. They've got 6 picks. They need an offensive line help. They lost their center, Connor Williams, last year. They signed, Aaron Brewer from Tennessee. I think they need an upgrade. There's some good centers in this draft. If you look at Zach Frazier out of West Virginia, if you look at, Barton from Duke, if you look at, there's just, obviously you could go Jackson Powers Johnson from Oregon with the 21st pick. He might be there. To me, upgrade the offensive line. Go get yourself a starting center. I mean, Aaron Brewer he can fill the position if you don't take a center. He can fill it. But if you're Mike McDaniel, just go, okay, let's just get a stud center. Like, they had the best center of all time, Dwight Stevenson. It's still the gold standard for how to play the position. I feel like if you went center, it's not a sexy position, and defense needs a lot of help. Could fill a lot of needs. They obviously need defensive end help. They need corner help. They need defensive tackles. And, Johnny Newton might be available 21, maybe take the place of, Christian Wilkins. Makes a lot of sense. I mean, you could plug and play a number of different guys. Jared Verse out of Florida State, Dallas Turner out of Alabama. You could see them go edge, interior defensive line, offensive line. There's going to be a number of tackles that can be had. So I think any of those positions, with their first pick, you could say Miami can't go wrong. You could trade back and gain a second-round pick that you don't have and get extra picks. So they've got flexibility. That leads me to the New England Patriots. They blew the whole thing up. They blew it all up. I mean, nobody has owned a division in any sport the way the New England Patriots have owned the AFC East. But they have not been competitive the last 2 years in a row. It was the worst-looking offense I saw in the NFL last year. They were 4-13, and they needed a complete rebuild. So the great Bill Belichick is gone, although his son, Brian Belichick, will still coach safeties. And I respect Robert Kraft. Like, he had a succession plan. They didn't spend a lot of time interviewing a lot of coaches. They went to Gerard Mayo. That was linebacker coach to head coach. Maybe he can become D'Amico Ryans. Maybe him, along with Elliott Wolf, the new general manager, maybe they turn things around. Maybe they do what Houston did. Nobody thought Houston could do what they did. They did it by getting the best quarterback in the draft. It started with that. And they had a great draft, and they struck gold in free agency. That's Houston Texans. For the New England Patriots right now, they look like a bad expansion team a year ago. I said it every single week. They spent the majority of their free agency re-signing their own. Josh Uche, Anthony Jennings, Michael Onwenu, the offensive lineman, Hunter Henry, Jalen Reagor, Kendrick Bourne. I mean, they re-signed their own guys. Now, they added some guys, obviously. Jacoby Brissett comes in. I mean, he was drafted in 2016 in the third round, the year that Tom Brady was suspended, and started 1 or 2 games. And then obviously traded away, bounced around the league, has been a starter, been a backup. He I think has just gotten better along the way. And so they've got a guy that's capable of starting like he did in Cleveland, where he played very well 2 years ago. So they've got a guy in Jacoby Brissett that can line up and play. They're going to get their 2 best defensive players back. They lost Matt Judon and Christian Gonzalez, and both of them are elite blue-chip players. If you're scouting the New England Patriots and you're giving a scout report to the opponents, their defensive line, outside linebacker, starts with Matt Judon. You got to know where he's at every play. And then you got to look at Christian Gonzalez, who is a number 1 corner and played like it until early in the season when he had his injury. They got Sione Takitaki. They brought in Austin Hooper and Antonio Gibson. They got guys, depth-type players. But they've got the 3rd pick in the draft. what is going to be the new Patriot way? That's what I ask myself. What is Gerard Mayo and Elliott Wolf joined at the hip? What are they going to do? I believe it's going to be a completely different way of drafting, analyzing, coaching, system. Like, I think it's all going to change. So I'm very, very interested in how this is going to look. So with the third pick, are they going to take the third best quarterback? Because everybody believes, and I believe, that quarterbacks are going 1, 2, 3, and they may go 1, 2, 3, 4. They might go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But I believe they're going to go 1, 2, 3. So if the Patriots are sitting there at 3, Mac Jones has already been traded. Jacoby Brissett is the foreseen starting quarterback. Do they take the third best quarterback? Is that Drake May? Is that Jaden Daniels? Is that Michael Penix Jr.? Who is it? And do they feel in their analysis that he is the guy that can, because I believe they need a quarterback. And I believe there's starting quarterbacks that can elevate their team in this draft. If you get the right guy, I don't think all 6 of the guys, including Bo Nix, the guys I've all mentioned, I don't believe, and J.J. McCarthy, I don't believe they're all capable of elevating bad teams the way we saw C.J. Stroud do it a year ago. So the question right now for the New England Patriots is quarterback or not to quarterback. They have to build this roster because they don't have to go quarterback. Jacoby Brissett is more capable of leading a bad football team. So there's two philosophies here. Get the quarterback with the third pick. Spend the number 34 pick, on a receiver, on an offensive lineman, on a corner. Build around the quarterback. Keep building. Because I don't believe they've got playmakers around a quarterback right now, even if they take one at 3. So take the quarterback, just start the build. Start the rebuild, because it's a complete rebuild. So take the quarterback, build around the third best quarterback in the draft. Or forego the quarterback, trade back with a team that wants to come up and get one of these quarterbacks. Get more picks. Now, that would be a Patriot thing to do. You could still draft a quarterback. You could still maybe get Michael Penix Jr. You could still trade back and still get one of those guys. But you could get maybe an extra first-round pick, maybe extra second-round pick, maybe picks next year. And go get the rebuild, the start of a new franchise, the way Houston did last year when they drafted C.J. Stroud. Then they traded away this year's first-round pick to go get Will Anderson, and they struck gold on both, winning the offensive and defensive rookies of the year. So I think those are some of the questions that Elliott Wolf, Robert Kraft, Gerard Mayo are considering. I think everything has to be in consideration. Everything has to be on the table right now. What's the best way, not the quickest way, what's the best way to rebuild this franchise into what we're accustomed to seeing, which is perennial playoff team, contenders in the AFC, all that stuff. That's what lies in front of the New England Patriots. And that's been the breakdown of the AFC East. I'm your host, Brian Baldinger. This has been the Best Football Show. Thanks for joining me. I look forward to talking to you more this week about more divisional matchups, news that's breaking in the NFL, and maybe one or two of the draft picks that are just catching my eye, like Marshawn Nealon did last night from Western Michigan. Thank you for joining me.